This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
I would say, what are the value of the 2 points when in the tie game in the last 10 minutes, you're called for 2 minors, so you have to kill those off, and you have a goal called back. And so to me, it was the tale of 2 games. It was 50 minutes of us doing a lot of really good things and still in a tie game. So can you take it home? And then there's a massive roadblock put in your way when the way the last 10 minutes unfolded. And so, if the hockey gods are testing you, there was multiple tests tonight. And I think, the guys learned a lot about themselves and how to deal with tough times when they come. And they come in all different ways. And nobody likes to, adversity is a cliche because everybody will say, oh my gosh, we needed that adversity. Well, adversity sucks. Like when you're in it, it really sucks. And so you have to work your way out of it. And it's so much easier said than done. And when you come out of it, you're like, oh yeah, we needed that. No, I would rather not have adversity. But the boys faced some real challenges tonight and they came through.
Adversity sucks. Is that what Coop said?
Maybe that'll be on the T-shirt.
Is that a T-shirt?
Later this year.
I mean, adversity makes you stronger if you come out on the other side of it. We've all faced it, obviously. Yeah. Athletes probably more than anybody. I mean,
it's not fun when you're in it.
No. I mean, think about some of the players, stew to a degree. Mm-hmm. You're trying to get to the NHL. You're grinding. You're in the East Coast League. You're over in Europe, and you get to be age 26, 27, and you're like, is it going to ever happen? And he finds himself in the NHL, or Brandon Hagel, and we can start there if you want to here on Power Lunch on Lightning Radio. We are taping, just departure day for you, partner, as you got to make your way to Nashville. And weird schedule coming up too. It's like you're on the road and then on home, and then next week will be a little crazy.
The Lightning have an interesting schedule this year in that there are very few trips actually they had 2 already, but at the time I thought it was a 4-game trip. But they have very few trips of just 2 games. Yeah. And in a way, the 4-game road trip was a 4-game road trip because they didn't play any home games in between. So they have 3 to 4 and 1 5-game road trip. And then they have a bunch of one-offs, and this Nashville trip is a one-off. Mm-hmm. But it's not they'd go there in the preseason. It's less than a 2-hour flight.
It shouldn't be as taxing. And
shouldn't be as taxing.
Much better coming off back-to-back wins. Now,
everyone's feeling a lot better.
They are. And there's a lot of things to talk about. We talked about adversity. Brandon Hagel comes to mind because it was interesting to hear his comments after the game last night. And he's like, you feel like you're not going to be able to score again. Or, it's nice to know I still have it. And his play, I think, epitomized the team's effort. It wasn't going to come easy. He kind of outworked Whitecloud for that goal. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't going to be pretty. Sometimes to get back on track, partner, you need a kind of gutsy win, a dirty win, roll up the sleeves type win. And I felt like the Lightning had a lot of things work against them last night, specifically the goaltending on the other side was outstanding. And you're thinking, my goodness, is this just going to be one of those games, as Brian Engblom said on the last call? Just another thing you're going to check off as to why we lost. This one was because the goaltender, who was making his NHL debut, was fantastic. But they stuck with it. I was really proud of how they stayed with it, facing some adversity, goal off the referee, a goal disallowed, a goaltender on the other side who was playing extremely well. Those are things that I think can help them continue to find their game moving forward. But I thought this weekend, and we can get into the game on Saturday as well, but a lot of good things, and last night was pretty impressive.
So last night might have been as close as we're going to see the Lightning get to your impossible standard of the full 60, or I guess the full 60 plus 33. I mean, they really dictated play for much of it. Vegas didn't have much going on at all. They got those 2 power plays in the third period, the Golden Knights did, and they generated 5 shots on those 2 power plays. Could have won them the game. So what Coop said in the open is right. I actually was thinking about the 3-game homestand as a whole, and maybe for me, I guess I'll start there, as well as tie in the game last night, but we haven't talked about Saturday's game either. And when the Lightning came back from the loss in Columbus, we said, hopefully they're going to use this little break. They had 4 days off, and then the 3 games at home as a reset. And I said, it's only a reset if you kind of change course, right? Mm-hmm. There is no question they changed course in that they played a lot better. And the ways that they played a lot better are evidenced in, plain and simple, they outworked the opponent, I thought, in all 3 games. They had a higher compete level. They had more hunger to their game. It wasn't as lopsided in all 3 games as it was last night, but that is a very important component to winning hockey. I think Coop had said after the Chicago game, kind of the money quote was, we have to remember what it takes. Just because you've done it before doesn't guarantee you future success. You have to really remember it. And I thought they played well against Chicago, but I think they even amped it up more over the weekend, and they got rewarded with 2 wins. So let me start with the opponents. So I thought the most impressive performance of the 3 games that we saw from the opponent was the Anaheim game. And that was the one team that came out of Benchmark International Arena with no points. Hockey's funny, right? Mm-hmm. I thought the second most impressive performance was Chicago's. I thought the least impressive performance was Vegas's. Now, does this mean that I think Anaheim and Chicago are going to finish ahead of Vegas at the end of the year in the standings? Probably not. Vegas is viewed as one of the top teams in the league, and the Golden Knights had gotten off to a great start. But I'm just basing it on what I saw. So sometimes, the ebbs and flows of the schedule, right? Vegas was playing the second half of a back-to-back, as were the Lightning. Vegas just didn't have it. It happens sometimes. That was one of the most average games I've seen from Mitch Marner since the Lightning have seen Mitch Marner.
And Jack Eichel.
In games. Eichel, I think he was trying. It just wasn't happening for them. Now, look, I understand. They don't have Noah Hannafin. They don't have Mark Stone. They're missing Aiden Hill, but they didn't miss him last night because, as you referenced, Lindbaum played great. I'm not sure Aiden Hill could have played any better than Carl Lindbaum did. But, Stone is an important part of their team and a very important part of their power play. And Hannafin is probably their best defenseman, right. At least a 1A, 1B with Theodore. And McNabb is very good as well. But, they haven't had Hannafin since game 1. He got hurt in their opener. And they've played a lot of hockey without Mark Stone through the years. So, I think that the Lightning just manhandled, honestly, a team that is viewed as one of the best teams in the NHL. That's very impressive. But, some of it was Vegas just didn't have it. I expect when the teams meet again in a week and a half or whatever it is that the Lightning are going to see a stiffer competition, honestly. So I heard a quote from Coop after last night's game, and he felt that they got better with each game. He's like, we made lots of mistakes against Chicago. We made fewer mistakes against Anaheim. We didn't make many mistakes at all against Vegas. And he's right. They didn't make a lot of mistakes against Vegas. I felt that they played pretty well against Chicago. We broke down the game on Friday. They had a huge mistake at the end of the game that cost them a chance to get points. And they had some leaky sequences on rush coverage. But as I said, they out-attempted the Blackhawks 73-48. Like, they did a lot of really good things. I think they outchanced Chicago. So I actually liked their game against the Blackhawks. I thought they were tighter last night, but they didn't play poorly against the Blackhawks. I thought the Anaheim game was their leakiest.
Yeah.
And some of that was just the game took on the flavor of a high chance game. Both teams had lots of chances. So when I say Anaheim is the most impressive team, Anaheim is going to need to get better defensively, and they didn't come in with great defensive numbers anyway to that game. They have a very, very impressive team. Let's not forget, Anaheim got 80 points last year, and they got rid of their head coach because they wanted to bring in Joel Quenneville. Or maybe one didn't lead to the other, but they made a coaching change. They hired Joel Quenneville. Joel Quenneville is going to help that team. I mean, the controversy with the Blackhawks and his past notwithstanding, like, he's a Hall of Fame coach, right? I mean, he's won cups. And before he got let go by the Panthers, he was helping them elevate, right? He's going to help Anaheim, and I'm sure he's absolutely tickled pink about coming into a situation where they have so many blue chip prospects, and many of these prospects, they can play. Leo Carlson is going to be a superstar in the NHL, and Cutter Gauthier, I mean, we only see them twice a year. He didn't really stand out to me in either game last year. He stood out on Saturday. I talked about Jackson Lacombe. He is a stud defenseman. You know who else they got? Zellweger is a great player.
Mm-hmm.
He is really, really good.
Yeah.
So, you throw these guys in there, and then, you got Mason McTavish, who's basically their second-line center. I felt that the 19-year-old Seneca didn't have as impactful a game, but he's 19. He's the third
teenager.
Overall pick.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
He's a big guy, and he's got great credentials. So the Lightning got into a game against a team, they fly. Like, they can run and gun. And it was a game in which both Johansson and Dostal erased lots of chances. The Lightning won the game, 4-3? The game could have been 11-10. I mean, honestly, it could have been. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the game, you're kind of like, the Lightning had a lot of problems, and most of it, again, was off the rush. They let Anaheim enter the zone, carrying it in most of the night. But the Lightning gave as good as they got. Like, they generated a lot of chances too. And what the common denominator that I saw over the weekend especially was that when the Lightning faced that word adversity, they really responded quite well. So in the Anaheim game, they go up 3-1. They could have been down, but they went up 3-1. Historic goals where Kucherov gets .1000 and Hedman gets .800 and Hagel gets .300 as they score the 2 goals in the second period. They go up 3-1. They get a 5-on-3 early in the third. They did a lot of good things on the 5-on-3. Dostal, again, was excellent. They don't score. Coming out of that power play, they give up a goal off the rush to Paling, and then less than a minute later, there's a rush chance for Gauthier. Johansson makes a save. Gauthier tracks the puck to the corner, throws it in front. Terry's open. This guy can shoot. I didn't even mention him because he's been in the league a few years. Mm-hmm. He, zips it in. It's 3-3. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding us? The Lightning are probably saying we had control of this game, and now it's tied. But if you understand what had happened prior to that, Greg, it was a high-chance game. That 3-1 lead to me was not secure based on what I had seen through the first 40 minutes. Johansson was really helping the Lightning keep Anaheim at 1 goal. But what happened after the Ducks tied the game? Who controlled the rest of the game, basically? When did those tying goals occur? It was about the halfway point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Terry's goal came at 8 minutes and 10 seconds into the third period. So basically the last 12 minutes, I thought the Lightning had a decisive advantage. And they took a punch to the gut, and they pushed right back. I mean, shot attempts in the third period, 34-16 Lightning. Now, some of that was they had those power plays, right? And then they scored late in the third on the power play, which got them the game-winning goal. But that was a very impressive pushback after the Ducks had tied the game. And then when they got the lead, I mean, we talked about it briefly on the pregame yesterday. The final 3 minutes and 15 seconds, that was a clinic of puck possession. The Ducks could not get the puck. So you have a dangerous opponent that has bit you earlier in the period. As you often say, what can be the best defense? Offense. Don't let them have the puck. Very hard to do over the course of a full game, but for 3 minutes, the Lightning did, and it started with Gord, Holmberg, and Gergensons, and they had a great shift. They kept the puck deep in the Anaheim end. The Ducks could not pull Dostal. He never came off the ice. Down by 1 in the third period. That was outstanding. And then Coop, in his quote at the start of the show, kind of spelled out the challenges of the game last night, which were the Lightning really should have been up about 5-1 It should have been a coast to victory sort of game. Instead, they're stuck 1-1, and now you have all this stuff go against you. I mean, honestly, the 2 penalties that were called, I mean, it was a little bit of a, we've given the Lightning all these power plays. We're going to now give Vegas some power plays.
Dave, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
look,
exactly
they weren't
what it was.
They weren't absolutely not penalties, but the Hagel one was kind of a, I mean, we actually felt Cirelli did more than Hagel, but they called Hagel. And the Girgensons one, Phil got very upset about that. I understand why, because he's like, don't even give them a chance to call a penalty. But what did Girgensons do? Nothing.
He dropped the gloves.
He did nothing. But they gave Anaheim a power play, and the Lightning had to deal with those kills that were sandwiched around the disallowed goal to Kucherov, which we often say, like, if you're offside by like half an inch, does it really have an impact on the goal being scored? It's not like, a guy was gaining an advantage. This was even less impactful than a guy being half an inch offside, because Kucherov has the puck. His stick blade went over the puck for half a second, but
isn't that rule the gray area that you and I have been trying to interpret over the last couple of years?
They made the right call. I mean, so the one that they kind of people get confused about, is if there's an offensive player already in the offensive zone. So let's say there was a player in the offensive zone who wants to get out. Like, he's in there. The puck comes out, and there's an offensive player in the offensive zone who knows he needs to get out before the puck comes back in. Another offensive player, let's say Kucherov, gets the puck, brings it across the line. The other player is still in the zone on his way out. Excuse me. If Kucherov, in this case, doesn't actually touch the puck, if he just kind of pushes it across the blue line and doesn't touch the puck until the other guy leaves, I think that's okay. So, I mean, we saw that in the playoffs a couple of years ago with Makar.
That's the one I keep referencing a little bit, right?
Yeah, so it has to do with, it also might be like Makar has to, so it's the puck can cross the line, but if the attacking player doesn't actually cross the line too and doesn't touch the puck, even though he kind of sort of has control, and he waits to touch it until his teammate leaves, that's okay. This was different because Kucherov had the puck, his blade went over the puck, he crossed the blue line, he picked up the puck again. I mean, if it stays on his stick blade, it's onside. And it had no bearing on the goal, which made that even more frustrating that was taken back. And then moments later, they have to kill a penalty on kind of a nothing call. But they got the job done. And then, of course, that set up the overtime winner where Cirelli breaks his stick in the faceoff. Usually that's not good, right? Because Cirelli broke his stick and they lost the faceoff. Cirelli went to the bench for Kucherov. That's when Kucherov was on the ice.
Went right to the bench.
He had time to get off. Yeah. I mean, it was at center ice. But that's why Kucherov was on the ice with Hagel. They're not usually they're not on the ice together in overtime. I think that they had a team up in Seattle a couple of years ago where Hagel scored in overtime. Maybe it was Kucherov. One or the other. It was kind of a similar play. They passed to each other. Usually, though, Hagel is with Cirelli in overtime. And that's why Kucherov was on the ice. And then after he scored, they mimicked the phone call.
I didn't realize that. I thought because I couldn't see.
I think that's what it was. It's like, is this goal okay? Are we all right with this one, Toronto?
That was the number one BS.
Yeah, but I'm guessing that was the purpose of the phone call. Yeah,
but as Brian pointed out in the postgame show, and he's right, the key to that 2-on-1 that made it so effective was that the pass was received early enough.
Mm-hmm. You also have Eichel back defensively. If Theodore, who was the guy who was stripped, was back defensively, that's a defenseman, maybe. Yeah,
but it was the right play at the right time. To piggyback off of your point with what the Lightning were able to accomplish on Saturday with that, do you want to call it 3-minute shift where they just hemmed them in? I don't want to say that's a season-defining moment because, again, in an 82-game season, that's hard to do. But you can find a little bit of an identity, and I think you can pick up some key momentum from something like that because that was a roll up your sleeve type shift where you just said, you guys aren't going the other way. We're gonna roll up our sleeves. We're gonna dig. And
we're not blowing another lead.
No, I mean
it ends now.
That's exactly what they did, and I don't know if that carries over to Vegas. Jason Collmore always brought up a good point when we talked about it, because I would ask him when he used to come on regularly, do you believe in momentum as a player? And he said, I don't believe in momentum. I believe in confidence that can carry from game to game. And did that end of the game give them a little confidence heading into the Vegas game? Hard to tell, but that was their most complete game of the young season. Is Vegas not clicking on all cylinders? Injuries aside, of course.
They had a tough weekend. I mean, they did.
And it sounds like if they're not generating off the rush, from what their broadcasters have been saying, they're struggling to generate offense beyond that.
Yeah.
Yes. So clearly they're working through some things. Do I think when their team is back and healthy that they're going to be a team that you're going to have to really pay attention to in the West? Absolutely. I do. I think they're well coached. I think they've got stars. Clearly it looks like they have pretty good options in net. I think that's a really good team. But right now they're going through some things, and that's fine. At least the last 2 games where they were shut out against the Panthers and the Lightning were able to take it to them. In terms of the penalties, I agree with you. If you take those penalties one by one individually, if we wanted to I actually griped a little bit more about the Hagel penalty than Gergensen's. With Gergensen's, that's one of those, I think Phil doesn't like it because there's a big hit and you always have to feel like you have to address. The other thing, too, is Gergensen's in that moment, because of the circumstances with the penalties and the way they were called up to that point, I think you just have to be smarter. Don't take off your gloves. If you want to address that later, go address it later. But time and place, I mean, in the second intermission report, we explicitly were talking about, look, Vegas is going to get a power play opportunity. That's hockey. I don't like it. But if the other team has, how many power play opportunities did Tampa Bay have through
5
2?
to 1.
Was it 5?
Because the first 2 overlapped. But then the Lightning got the next 4.
Yes. So it's just how hockey goes. You're going to get an opportunity, maybe even a couple. Usually they're going to come at the beginning because officials are going to be like, look, I don't want to impact the game late. I'm going to swallow the whistle. But you could darn well believe that first 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes of the third period, anything close probably was going to go Vegas's way. That's why I had a problem with what Gergensen's did. Not necessarily that he did by rule anything wrong. It's just, I think when you throw the gloves off like that and you start to engage somebody, and it's too easy.
That's why Phil was upset too.
Yeah, it's just too easy. By the way, we can get into Cooch, we can get into Hedman and Hagel and the milestones. I think lost in this, and by the way, we do need to talk about Dominic James, because while he didn't score, this goes to our point of what you and I have discussed. He's pushing play. He's pushing it on a third or fourth line, and he's showing he can do it on a second line. Yeah. And it's different than what maybe a Finley brings or somebody else who was on those lines trying to do what they do effectively. James is saying to John Cooper, because he's a hound on the puck. That's what I'd love to see about him, is he's in the right place at the right time. You've used the word dynamic, which I agree with. Ends up he hits the post on the 2-on-1.
Yeah, and I love that he shot the puck, because how many guys would be like, oh, I need to give it to Kucherov.
But
he's
Dave,
like, I'm taking the shot.
He looks dynamic. He does not look out of place. Now, do we have to temper expectations that maybe the adrenaline will wear off a little bit and that not every game will be as dynamic?
I don't think.
Maybe.
I wouldn't say it that way, though, because this is exactly how he played in the preseason,
and that's
too.
Fair. And that's fair.
I think what you have to temper is just that he's going to be able to have like a flawless game every time. Like,
that's true.
The goal that was scored by William Karlsson, that was his man. That was the one shift where Coop put him out, I think, with Hagel and Cirelli.
Yeah.
And they had the puck in the offense zone, then it got switched up the ice. It was a well-executed passing play by Vegas.
And it wasn't like he was dogging
he took a -1 last night.
Right.
So he'll learn from that. This is the NHL. This isn't NCAA hockey anymore. And, the other team can make high skill plays. And that was...
But let me just say this.
Phil was kind of like, I kind of feel Vasi should have had that, but it was still a very good shot from William Karlsson.
It may be unfair, but we talk about the competition with the younger players and who has looked good and who is still trying to find their game. While I think, me personally, I wanted to see Geekie up here because I think that's better for his progression as a player, although I think he needs to be in some different situations to be good. I do get it. They want to have him go down to Syracuse, play, and bring up points. But in terms of, and I'm going to throw Gonzalez, Chafee, Geekie, and Finley together, because I still think these are young players who have shown flashes, some more than others, but are part of this depth that we talk about. James has shown the most out of all of those guys. Like if you were to say, yeah, Chafee's had some games where he's been physical and he's been engaged. There's been some other games where I haven't noticed him as much. James, I've noticed him. I know it's not a long sample size, but if we're going back to preseason, this guy deserves to be here.
Yeah. This is how he plays.
This is how he plays. And man, if the Lightning, if this continues the way it's going, and again, long season, let's, from that perspective, temper the expectations, because he's going to have probably a clunker here and there along the way. But if this is kind of the trajectory of him, the Lightning have found something.
Yeah, and I think so I agree with you. I agree that he has been the most impactful.
Yes.
I mean, Gonçalves had a very impactful second half of last year. He's still looking to get going.
He is.
But Gonçalves wasn't just dropped right into the NHL and had an immediate impact. James is a little bit older because he was in college for 4 years. But think about how rare it is for the Lightning to do something like this. Sign a player literally in training camp. We explained the circumstances behind that. He wasn't available to be signed until he ran out the clock with Chicago, and then even then, I think it was August, the Lightning didn't sign him until training camp for whatever reason. He had no structured work during the summer with any team. I mean, he kind of worked out on his own. He arrives, new team, new situation. Some of the guys that he's sharing the locker room with have been to multiple camps, have been, through multiple preseason games. He gets dropped into a preseason game like 3 days after he arrives, makes such an impact he gets to play the next night in a back-to-back, sustains a mild injury, so he's kind of on the shelf for 3 or 4 days, plays the final 2 preseason games, including almost 30 minutes in the final game against Florida where they put him on defense, and within a week of the start of the season, he's back up, and he has supplanted a bunch of other guys that we have spent a lot of time in the show talking about, like who's going to fit where. So for the Lightning to do that, it's just extremely rare. It is extremely rare for the Lightning to welcome a new player to the organization, basically just without any past history. Like, we're not talking about them acquiring Brandon Hagel from Chicago, where they'd seen Hagel play, and they're like, okay, we acquired this guy, we're going to play him. Dominic James was signed as a free agent. He's in this first-year pro. And they're like, he's in. We need a spark after 6 games. We're bringing up James. You're in. You're moving in ahead of these other guys. And not only are you moving in, after 1 game of playing on the 4th line, we're bumping you up. So, yeah. And he's continuing to show that he deserves it, right?
Sure.
Coop went out of his way to mention James and Destu, who I thought, so remember after the Chicago game, I said Dominic James didn't look like a guy playing his first NHL game. It could have been game 1, 5, 32, 110. Like, I mean, he just played. Destu looked like a guy who's like, this is my first NHL game. I thought he did fine, and the Lightning sheltered him a little bit on Sunday because they had 7 defensemen, but I think he can play too. I mean, you don't get named the best defenseman in multiple leagues for nothing, right? And the Lightning could have called up other defensemen if they'd wanted to. So I liked him in the preseason, and I don't think that he's had quite the same impact as James has had, playing a different position. Defense is trickier, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if he stays in. I mean, we're going to have to monitor the Crozier situation.
Yeah.
But
that part, when we talk about...
Who is skating, by the way. So that's good news.
Which is good.
Crozier.
Which is good. Yeah. It's funny with some of these younger guys to start the season, some are going to go ahead of the pack and some are going to try and still figure things out. Finley, I think, is still waiting for an opportunity probably to get back in the lineup to showcase what he can do. Chafee was a scratch yesterday, because they won 11-7.
And Saturday.
Yeah. Douglas for various reasons.
Hardly played Saturday, yeah.
And so that's going to be interesting. Some of this is going to depend on how many forwards they do want to keep on the NHL side.
Girgensons had an impact. I know we talked about his penalty, but
I wanted to get to him because you were absolutely right.
He really had an impactful weekend.
You don't. This is cliche. You don't realize the impact he can have until he's out of the lineup. But outside of the penalty that he took yesterday, he brings a certain level of professionalism. And I don't want to say the adult at the table, but you just know what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have too many dips outside of course, he wanted to score a little bit more last year, and that was weighing on him. Let's assume he goes back to his average goals per year, and maybe he gives you 7 or 8 this season. That being said, there's a certain physical play that he provides every game. Penalty kill, sticking up for his teammates. But again, the adult in the room. He understands what he needs to do. He's going to do it. And I think as a coaching staff, you can appreciate that because the ebbs and flows aren't as great as maybe a younger player who's trying to get in. While we want to see the young player come in, and that's what we are seeing with James. We saw that with Crozier, and I think Crozier, when he comes back, is hopefully going to have, a top 6 role. Littleberg, to a lesser extent, I think he's going through some things, but he's still in the lineup, and they want to work through what he's presenting. I think Girgensons coming back adds a little bit more stability to your bottom 6 and probably specifically your 4th line. And I thought he was impactful in the games that he did come back, partner. They missed him, and it definitely showed up when he was there.
Yeah, I mean, look, he was part of that line that started the final 3 minutes and 15 seconds against Anaheim, where they worked the puck in the offensive zone. And, the Sunday game, the Lightning went 11-7. The line with 2 forwards was Hagel and Cirelli. We saw a lot of Girgensons with them in the second half of that game. So, I mean, look, he is versatile. Coop is comfortable using him in different roles. But one of the things Coop said about specifically James and Destu, and I think he was really referring to James because he talked about kind of filling out the lineup. Should I call it the 4th line? I'm not sure if I should. Maybe people
call it what you want.
Call it the 3rd line. But,
we
on the road trip, the Lightning's most consistent line in terms of giving them good play was Gord, Holmberg, and Bjorkstrand. When Girgensons got back in the lineup, they put Girgensons on that line with Gord and Holmberg. And that, to me, it looks like the 4th line.
Boy, is that a meat and potato line, by the way.
It
I
is.
Actually kind of like that.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to call it the 4th line, 3rd line, whatever you want to call it.
Call it the 4th line. Yeah.
Call it the 4th line, but they are getting defensive assignments. Yes. They are getting, get thrown out there after a goal against. Get thrown out there after a goal for, which is what happened at the end of the Anaheim game, because they just play with a relentlessness. I mean, I talked about Holmberg during the preseason where we didn't see him a lot, training camp, because I remembered him in Toronto. And remember, we were taking some fan comments about the Lightning didn't address the toughness enough during the off seasons before they picked up Douglas on waivers. And I'm like, no, but they got Pontus Holmberg. And I'm like, he's not an enforcer, but I think Lightning fans are going to really like how he plays. He is so hard on the puck. Have you noticed, Greg, like he feels pressure, like he's trying to get the puck from a dangerous area to a less dangerous area.
Yeah.
Or move it up the ice or come out of the corner along the boards. I'm really talking about in the defensive zone, in the neutral zone, but he does it in the offensive zone too. And there is a guy battling him. Like he has a guy on his tail. He's jostling and he stays in control of the puck and gets to where he needs to get it in deep or carry it or pass to a teammate. Like that is such a hard thing to do.
Agreed.
And we've seen him do it repeatedly, as well as being, a fairly intelligent player. I shouldn't frame it that way. He is an intelligent player. I think that's why the Lightning were very intrigued by him. He's not going to score 30 goals. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to score 30 goals. Yeah. But the things that he brings to the lineup are really important, intangible elements or tangible elements, not intangible. Like you win your puck battles.
Yeah.
You help drive play that way. You make the other team play in the defensive zone. You allow your team to spend less time in your defensive zone because you make hard plays and you hold on to pucks. That's really, really important to team success. And this is what Pontus Holmberg can bring to a lineup. I think we're seeing it. So I think he's a very good fit with Gord, who's kind of cut from the same cloth, right?
Agreed.
And you mentioned, I love that word, professionalism for Girgensons. Like, he's like, this is what you're getting, right?
Yeah.
And I've done it. I've done it for a dozen years or whatever it is.
Yep.
And I'm going to keep doing what I do.
I can skate. I'm going to be physical. I'm typically going to be in the right place at the right time. I'm going to stick up for my teammates, and I'm going to do a lot of the things some other guys don't want to do, but that's allowed me to stay in the league. I actually think that fourth line, I'm going to call it that, is probably the fourth line you want on a team who has playoff and Stanley Cup aspirations.
Yeah.
Go out there, play on the other team's end if you can. Be hard, be physical. It's kind of no nonsense. Don't be flashy. Yanni can give you a little bit more offense maybe than the other two because he's done it. Although, quite frankly, at this point in his career, I'm not expecting him to hit 15 or 16 goals. I think if you get that from him, that would be nice. But if those guys get anywhere between 8 to 12 goals individually, I would say if they're doing the other things we just depicted, that's a heck of a fourth line. Now, then it becomes... How does everything else look? Because you got Nick Paul coming.
Well, right. But
right?
My point back to Coop was I think the arrival of James opened the door for them to use him as, we'll call it the third line center with Gonsalves and Bjorkstrand. And that slotted the Gord, Girgensons, Holmberg unit.
Yeah.
As a unit.
Yeah. And look, we know this is a pretty fluid situation. So things could change depending on players who are injured. Bjorkstrand, I think, another encouraging sign, at least last night for me, was that, he was in position for some really good scoring opportunities. He hasn't really been able to get going.
I think he had 7 or 8 shot attempts.
And how many of them were quality too, Dave? I mean, some of them were point blank.
9 shot attempts. Yeah,
I mean,
4 were blocked, but
that's who he is now. I mean, he's a shooter. And so his job is to score goals. And you can't score them if you're not in position. Last night, for me, was the first game I saw him collectively be very noticeable in those areas where he can shoot and snipe. So hopefully for him in Nashville, he can build off of the game on Sunday, because now you're going to start getting a situation where your top 9 is going to start to get healthy. I mean, Nick Paul is closer to returning, right? I mean he's not going to be on a fourth line.
Early to mid-November, and today is October 27th. Happy birthday, by the way.
Well, thank you. So he's...
If I'm allowed to say that on the air.
You are.
Fans,
if they
go
want to
ahead and serenade
please,
Greg.
Please.
I won't ask how old.
You can. 45.
Oh, very nice. Nice even number. Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
You're a 1980,
nice.
right?
I'm a 1980 baby. So
miracle on Pittsburgh ice.
That's right. It was a great year. But I think the top 9, now James kind of puts his name in that hat to say, hey, I'm part of this. The Lightning are going to have some interesting decisions to make, and you're starting to see that from this past weekend, guys who were scratched. Mitchell Chavey was one of those players in preseason. We said, looked pretty good, and when he plays with fire in his belly, he's got a good shot. Douglas, I think it's pretty apparent he's going to be what you call kind of a spot player. I think, he's going to be kept on this team for various reasons, but I think we talked about it in the post-game show yesterday. You got November 14th circled because that's when the Lightning take on the Panthers. There are going to be certain games I think he makes sense to be in the lineup. And then Brian mentioned yesterday, partner, I don't know how you feel, he still needs to get acclimated to the NHL pace. And that can mean in practice as well. You've got to know these drills. You've got to know where to go and what to do, get up to speed in terms of the Lightning system. They like him enough to keep him, and they know he can take care of business with his fists, and there will be a time and place for that. But I think if he wants to play more than 4 minutes a game, it seems like there's going to be some other things he needs to work on, and that might come in the way of practices, film study, and getting up to speed from that perspective.
And it may have been that the Lightning actually had him for the Anaheim game take line rushes with Hagel and Cirelli. I was like, that's interesting. And I don't know if they were thinking, okay, we're definitely going to use him the whole game with Hagel and Cirelli, but I think they wanted James to be the third line center, and they wanted Gord with Girgensons back to form that fourth line, we'll call it. So where do you put Douglas? So they put him with Hagel and Cirelli. He didn't play a lot with Hagel and Cirelli. He didn't play a lot, period. He only had 4 shifts. Some of that, though, I think, was how the game unfolded. And Coop was like, this Anaheim team, I mean, they know on pre-scout, but when you see them, they're like, this team has some major giddy up. And I think the Lightning basically went 11-6 that game because Douglas only had the 4 shifts. And that was their choice. They had Ross Johnston in the lineup who can throw him, but he ended up, he was the one who fought Lilleberg, right?
Yes.
That was at the beginning of the game. So he didn't even fight Douglas.
That is correct.
Yeah, Johnston fought.
Yep.
So, I think part of it was we're probably going to protect him a little bit, and then they got into the game, and they're like, let's protect him even more. And then for Sunday, it's like, well, if you're only going to take 4 shifts, let's go with 11-7. And you would think Vegas would have giddy up, but Vegas was flat. So
yeah,
it happens. Look, when the Lightning have another flat game, and they're going to have one, and the fans are like, oh, this team. Blah, blah. It's like every team has games like this. Every team. I don't know how I'm seeing this, but people are squawking about the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes. So I misspoke when I said they had a 10-game road trip. They played the first 2 at home, and then I think they had 5 or 6 on the road, but it was a long road trip. Like, it's not like they played the 5 games in 9 days. Like, it was almost like a 2-week road trip. They were gone.
Yep.
And I think they ended up losing 2 of the last 3 or something like that. They had a very successful road trip. They're up near the top of the standings. They're behind the Devils because the Devils haven't lost since Carolina beat them. And people are complaining about like, whoa, Svechnikov hasn't scored and this guy hasn't scored. And, they picked up Ehlers. He hasn't scored. I'm like, the power play is not, which it isn't. It's near the bottom of the league. And I'm just like, do you realize how difficult this is to go on the road for 12 days or whatever it is and cash in like they did? They beat Colorado in Denver. They're a good team, Colorado. And
they are.
I don't know. I mean, I just think that this is the way it is. Like, if your team isn't doing exactly what they want to do perfectly, there's always an invitation to kind of pick apart what's happening.
Sure.
So Vegas had a bad game. I think we're going to see a much better performance from the Golden Knights when the Lightning play them in Vegas in a week and a half.
I mean, it's encouraging what the Lightning did to Vegas, but again, just like we're not going to overreact with the Lightning when they have some games where they struggle, especially early in the season. I'm not sure that's the same way I'm going to feel about Vegas. I mean, I think they're going to be there as one of the top 8 teams in the West, and then from there, it's kind of a crapshoot. I think I told you yesterday when you and I were in the booth before the pregame that Chris Johnston, who we've had on the show before, does some stuff for The Athletic. He was doing a Q&A, and one of the questions was basically about the Lightning and how they've looked to start, and is this the beginning of the end for the Lightning, kind of taking those type of things. He basically said, look, I'm not going to make any decision on Tampa Bay early on in the season. If you want to check back with me, around Thanksgiving, please do, but they deserve the benefit of the doubt to figure some of this stuff out, because the guy was like, do they look slow? And I think when you struggle coming out of the gate, a lot of people are just going to look at it and they'll say, look, this team has been together for almost a decade and they've had a lot of long playoff runs, even though the last couple of years they've been knocked out. But is this the effects of all of the hockey they've been playing? And Johnson was basically like, listen, they deserve to figure this out.
I think if you watch the last 3 games at home, they didn't look slow.
I would agree. Matt says, question for you guys. This was yesterday for Lightning Lunch tomorrow. How do you feel about a judgment call, Cooch not having possession being challengeable?
Well, it's not challengeable.
Right.
I mean, they reviewed it. So they saw that the puck was off his stick blade and they deemed he didn't have control and threw himself offside. That's not a challengeable. I mean, the offside is challengeable. Right. But once it was determined that it was offside, challenging, well, we disagree that you feel he didn't have possession is not something you can challenge. That was the call.
Kenny also to that responded, also, why isn't the threshold for possession the same for offside as it is for interference?
So you're saying that, like, if you, for example, the Vancouver player Hedl, I think that maybe is where the fan is going. Like, Hedl delivered the pass, didn't have the puck. Right. Wilson hit him, and it wasn't interference because there was a beat, right?
Right.
That's a little different. I mean, look, we're calling it like we saw it, and I think it was pretty clear that Kucherov, the puck went off his stick blade. I think that's actually why the linesmen took as long as they did to look at it. Because, I mean, there was no dispute about what happened. I think they were trying to decide if it still constituted possession. Because you can take your stick blade off the puck and still have possession, right? It's not like the puck is on your stick blade 100% of the time, like, you're moving it back and forth. But I think Kucherov tries to make a play on the puck to push it forward, and his blade goes over the puck. So it's almost like he has to reach back and reel it back in, and they felt that constituted kind of losing possession, and just at that moment, he crossed the blue line before the puck. I actually didn't have a problem with the call, for what it's worth. In that,
that's fair.
I had a problem with the call in that it was stupid that this took a goal off the board, but letter to the law, yeah, I mean, it is offside.
Jim says, our good friend from Jacksonville, huge games with Nashville and Dallas this week with the upcoming Western road trip next week. Utah, Colorado, and Vegas are currently the top 3 teams in the West. All of them have 0 regulation losses at home.
Yeah, Utah's gotten off to a good start. I mean, I felt that they were an up-and-coming team. You have Utah in the West. You have Utah. You have Anaheim for sure. You have Chicago. How much are those 3 teams going to push the other teams as they try and elevate? And to this point, those 3, I mean, Chicago lost last night, but those 3 teams have done well. It's going to be a challenging road trip. I am very, very high in Colorado. I think they lost in Boston and then lost in overtime in New Jersey over the weekend. They are a very, very good team. And
they've got stars.
The Lightning tend not to play very well in Vegas. I know every year is a new year. We'll see. It's going to be Jim is right. It's going to be a challenging road trip. Colorado's but the Lightning have to believe like we're playing better. If they play with the level of urgency and they bring that work boot mentality, which, I mean, every team wants to do that, but to actually be able to put it out on the ice and will yourself to outwork the other team. It's hard to do for long stretches, but I think they did it certainly over the weekend and really in the homestand for much of the homestand. Then they're going to be in a position to do okay on that road trip. But first things first, they're at Nashville.
Yeah.
For the game tomorrow. Nashville they are just a mess. I mean, they blew a 2-0 lead at home to Dallas, the Lightning's opponent, on Thursday. I think I saw Stamkos has 1 power play goal through 9 games. Goal, right? Like that's just he was hoping that this was going to be a resurgent year for him. They actually started, I think, okay.
Yeah.
But they've been scuffling. So look, one of 2 things are going to happen. The Lightning can either extend that or Nashville will actually boomerang back and play much better. And Dallas is another one of those teams. Like, I think they are a legit cup contender.
Yeah.
I mean, they are. So not easy. I mean, these 8 straight games the Lightning have against the West, which is going to culminate in that 3-game road trip Jim talked about. Those are challenging games.
Those are good teams.
Yeah.
Those are good teams for sure. Doug wants to know, do you guys think the Lightning will go 11-7 tomorrow?
Well, we'll probably know on the show tomorrow. We can go live tomorrow, and we'll be an hour behind in Nashville. So the Lightning will actually be on the ice when we are doing the show.
What was the ice time for Radish and Lilleberg yesterday? As we kind of look.
And I'll look at Destu, too. I have the wrong game sheet here. All right, so Radish was 8:41. Lilleberg was 12:41, and that was with a 5-minute major for fighting because he had a fight in the game last night too. And Destu 10:36.
Yeah.
Lilleberg took a lot of flack on our show, and I have to say I thought he had a very good weekend. I mean, he drew the penalty on Ross Johnston that led to the Cirelli game-winning goal. That was a terrible penalty taken by Ross Johnston, by the way. If we were doing an Anaheim show, be like, you battled back to 3-3. You actually have the puck in the offensive zone, which they didn't have a lot in those last 12 minutes. At that point, it was 8 minutes. And literally, you're behind the Lightning net. You are literally 200 feet or maybe 190 feet from your own net and you take a
Right.
penalty and it leads to the game-winning goal. That's a tough one. But Lilleberg drew the penalty.
You know,
I thought he played with a little bit more, I don't even know what the right word is, swagger, or just like he was decisive in making plays, which really helped the Lightning do what they wanted to do over the weekend.
didn't see how the fight started yesterday with Lilleberg. Remember that
Yeah.
kind of caught us all. We were like, oh, interesting. Tough customer he went against.
Very tough, yeah.
Held his own. I think Lilleberg is just somebody that I'm willing to keep in the lineup if you want to protect him a bit by dressing Radish to a degree, but I still think there's value in having Lilleberg continue his maturation as a young defenseman. I think you're going to need him, and I think the only way he's going to be impactful is if he sees that ice time. So I think, we'll see. John Cooper likes to stick with lineups sometimes that do pretty well.
Yeah, to the fans' point, they may come back with 11-7. It's unclear how close Crozier is. I mean, they ruled him out for the weekend in the 3 games earlier in the week that we just had, but he has been skating, so we'll see. The one other thing I'll say about Lilleberg, and not everyone can do this, something that Breeden Coburn touched on when he was on with us last week. For the Saturday game, he played the right side. Destu was on the left side.
Yeah.
I thought he handled that quite well. I don't know how much experience he has playing the right side, but he certainly didn't look out of place playing the right side. I know it's not the Lightning's preference to have lefties on D play the right side and more uncommonly righties play the left side. We saw with Dumba a couple of years ago. Usually you have more lefties, so you have to figure that out. And we see with Moser. Moser can do it for sure. But I thought Lilleberg held his own. More than held his own. I actually liked him on the right side, playing with Destu in the Anaheim game.
Destu, the observation I think we've made, and I think it's a fair one, maybe deferring a little bit too much offensively.
They put him on power play too. So again, they had Radish in the lineup on Sunday.
Yeah.
And they had all those power plays. So power play 2 got some reps. They put Destu out there. So I will just say this. If Destu is going to get power play 2 time, he's going to need to shoot the puck.
He has to, right?
But I understand that he's like, at one point it was Kucherov. He's like, I got Kucherov over here.
It's easy to say that, yeah.
Yeah, like I'm gonna give it to somebody else.
Right.
But they were backing off a little bit. They're like, we'll let this guy shoot the puck. Look, he's an offensive defenseman. That was his calling card in junior hockey, and it really hasn't slowed down for him. Yeah, he's been a point producer throughout his pro career too.
Sure. He's
We'll
got
see.
pedigree. Yeah.
I mean, I think that his head is in the right spot where, look, if you're on power play 2 and you have the puck and a chance to shoot, right? But his mind is probably like, I want to make sure that I'm doing the things that I need to do to succeed at the NHL level, namely play well on my own end. And I thought he did that. And Coop said he added a welcome component to the lineup. It's unclear exactly to us exactly how that manifested itself. Coop's on the bench, Coop's in the room, but he liked having him in there, and they didn't have to. They could have made a different lineup decision for Sunday. They decided to put him in both games, where Coop originally said, if you remember, Destu is going to get into one of the games this weekend.
Sure.
I think that's what he said. So he got him in the first game and kept him in the second game.
He hasn't looked out of place, I think, and John Cooper has talked about James and Destu specifically as guys who have earned their opportunity here. So I would anticipate he continues to get into the lineup. And again, I think if you're going to bring him up and you like what you've seen so far and the way he's been able to adjust so far through a couple of games, I'd continue to put him in there because he's only going to get better, especially with his age and his experience. I think he's going to turn that corner quicker if everything they've liked about him continues to come to the forefront. The skating, the passing, making the good first pass. We also know there's that offensive upside that he has. It feels like there's a lot of tools in that toolbox, and we haven't seen all of it yet.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraged to kind of see how it plays out. This one comes from John. Says, guys, what do you think Douglas's role will be this week, particularly after what we've seen the last 2 games?
Well, you kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
It may be a spot duty situation. Nashville has some tough guys. I don't know, though. I mean, they had a winning lineup on Sunday, and they played. I mean, it was their best game of the year.
Right.
There's no question in my mind, and they deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just pointing out that Vegas did not have a very good game. So, I mean, that's you go into the laboratory and, you have your your little bowl, you're putting in the ingredients, right? So the Lightning played very, very well. Vegas didn't. So I think, they interacted with each other. I don't know if the Lightning can expect to. I mean, shot attempts through 2 periods, Greg, were 55-22 Lightning. I know they had the power plays, but they also controlled 5-on-5 action. I'm not sure that we can expect to see the same thing on the road against Nashville. But usually a winning lineup stays the same. The reason the Lightning changed after the Saturday game was I think they recognized Douglas only played, the 4 shifts. So let's get Radish in there. And also if Crozier is ready to go. I think once Crozier is healthy, Crozier comes in. And then they'll figure out the rest.
Everybody else fall into place.
Yeah. It may be a little early for Crozier.
It was good to see Hedman. Was it on Saturday? I feel like had a few shots.
Yeah, he's had a lot of
missed.
He had a lot of shot attempts on Saturday.
Yeah.
Let's see. So he had 3 shots on net, 2 blocked, 4 missed. So that's 9. And he had a quieter shot game on Sunday.
Yeah,
2 on net, 1 blocked, 1 missed. But Kucherov hit double-digit shot attempts in both games. And we have talked about Kucherov shooting. He was definitely looking to shoot. I think on Saturday he was shooting also because he's like, man, I want my 1,000th point. He didn't say that to anyone. He certainly didn't say it to me. But on Saturday he had 6 shots on net, 5 blocked, and 5 missed. So that's 16 shot attempts. And then he came back Sunday with 11. 8 were blocked. So they're getting in the way, but I mean, some of them are being blocked down low. He's shooting, and it's getting blocked very close to the goaltender. And then, of course, he had a shot that got taken away because he scored a goal, and it got taken away for the offside.
Let me get to our...
Don't forget about our friends at Reef Rum, my friend.
I was going to say, I got to get to it.
Yes.
Tonight, enjoy some Reef Rum. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a tropical wave or a lightning mule and taste why fans are switching. Reef Rum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Reef Rum by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. All right, so tomorrow we will be at it live.
Yeah. That's 11 o'clock Central, and the Lightning have the ice at 11:30 Central. So they'll be coming on the ice right around the halfway point of our show.
Okay.
And we'll probably be wrapping up right around the time that they are wrapping up. So we'll get a lineup idea.
And that'll be good. And then the game is at 7:45.
Yeah, so this is
Weird.
what is it called? Frozen Frenzy. Every team is in action, and there's a staggered start time for every game. So the Lightning start at 6:45 Nashville time, 7:45 Eastern time.
Yep. I love it.
So if you're watching a game or following a game that it goes into intermission, you can just go to another game because you know that there's another game that is not an intermission, right?
Of course. So we'll have that for you tomorrow, doing the show and then the game, and then we'll recap it again on Wednesday. But a good weekend.
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff.
I think the fans probably are feeling better about 4 points in 2 games. But as the players said after the game last night, like this is just a small step. They still have a lot of work to do. They are not going to hit their first 10-game segment playoff pace goal, which is 12 points after 10 games. The most they can get is 10 after 10 games if they can win on Tuesday. But they've at least put themselves in range to make up ground down the road. They didn't, finish the 10-game segment stuck at 3 or 4 points. That would have been very, very damaging. So hopefully they can get to 10 and then start the second 10-game segment, which, as Jim mentioned, is a tricky one at the beginning with some good opponents and a road trip. But that's the schedule. So, as they say, keep munching points.
Keep munching, and we will keep talking to our audience. We'll do it again tomorrow. Partner, good job. Good weekend. And we'll get back at it tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
You got it. Thanks, Steve Versnick. for producing and engineering. Thanks to everybody for listening. We appreciate it. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch right here on Lightning Radio.